Well, hi there, Peter, and we need a second name there for your lady. Oh, you're muted. Can you unmute and tell us your name?
I'll change it.
And my name is Eileen.
Hi, Eileen. Glad to meet
Hi,
you.
Diane.
So glad you came. How did you find out about our gathering?
Oh, it's online.
A fellowship probably sent you something.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been to any of our other presentations?
Not, not yours, no. Mm-mm.
Well, we're glad to have you. I'm Diane. I'm the president of the Los Angeles Society, and that's who's bringing you today's presentation.
Okay, and at present, I'm the president of the Uranium Society of Greater New York.
Oh, are you? Oh, fabulous. I'd love to chat with you about society problems and society solutions. You've probably been through a few.
I'm learning. I'm very interested in what is being done with the Constitution. It is in such need of being brought into the 21st century.
Yes, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Oh, I see we have many others joining us now. Hi, Tom. And we have Robert. Robert, where are you from?
Port Angeles, Washington, up in the northwest
Wow.
corner.
Up there in the cold with snow?
Up in the mountains, looking at it right now. Gorgeous. Good to see you all.
Good to see you too. And we have, oh, hi, Don. Don is one of our speakers today. Glad to see you here. And Robert? Oh, we're popping in quickly here. I see Debbie, our membership person, is joining us. And Don, you just joined our group altogether. Don's just moved to the area. And Peter, tell us where you're from.
Which one?
Oh, there's two Peters? Oh, you do, yeah. The Peter Santaniello. Hi, Peter.
Hi, I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, my goodness. The wonders of Zoom, I can't get over it. Of course, when we started, we didn't even have study groups, but now we're from all over the world. We've had people join us from Guam and from India and France. Oh, there's our Betsy.
Hi.
Hi, Betsy.
Everyone.
Hi, Betsy.
Hey, how's it going?
Betsy's in Los Angeles with the rest of our group here. And she's going to do a reading for us today. And Debbie is our membership person. I'm glad she's here today. Don't know who the phone number is, but they're welcome to.
Hi, this is Charles from the East Coast. I'm calling in from an Amtrak train in Texas. I was in LA a few days ago, and also stopped by in Tucson earlier this morning, and I'll be in New York in about a week.
Wow.
Wow. So,
That's you win the prize for the most unusual connection.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
And hi, Lee. I see
Hi, Jeanette.
Hi.
you have a friend.
Well, he's gone now.
He's welcome to watch as well.
He doesn't interrupt anything, but he
Okay.
sometimes he likes to peek in.
He wants to be next to you.
He's on the floor now.
And there's Vincent. Vincent from Los Angeles. We haven't heard from you. Where are you in Los Angeles?
I think we've both discovered each other here. I'm in really Los Angeles County, way on the bottom. I'm more close to the Rosamond, which is the border of LA County and Kern County.
Okay.
I'm peeking in on you guys.
Oh, please do. Do you have a society there?
No.
Well, you're welcome to join ours. We're the LA Society, but we pretty much are Southern California. And I'll tell you about, if those of you who don't know,
Well, somehow I got your email, so
I'm not surprised.
somebody's doing some emailing.
Yes, we had the help of the fellowship too. They're very extensive list, which goes actually all over the world. So we're always surprised at who does show, but welcome. I wanted to let you know
Thank
this is the Los Angeles Fellowship Urantia Society, and we have quarterly presentations that we'd like to make for education and for socialization. We can't get together in person, except we do get together twice a year in person. So watch for the notices of our big Thanksgiving meal that we get thanks to Mark Erickson and his team. It's a home cooked Thanksgiving dinner. It's just fabulous, all the trimmings. And we do have that in Anaheim. So anybody who's in the area, be sure to come. And we have a birthday celebration for Jesus in August. And that's a pool party at Mark's house. So you want to be sure and watch for that one. Otherwise, here we are all on Zoom and delighted to be here. April Helen, there you are. Welcome. April Helen is one of our speakers today.
Yay.
We talk on various topics that would be helpful to your spiritual growth, education about the book, but there's a lot of interpersonal discussion. So although we can't be in person together, and we love that the best, we can be quite together, intimate, and share some personal things. These groups are quite valid communities. And I wanted to start with a quote. We like to get everybody on the same page mentally and spiritually. And so we're going to have a quote from the book. And we'll
Sounds like my cue, Diane.
sounds like your cue, Betsy. You and your
Okay,
friend Johanna.
I tried to pick a quote today, but I actually came up with two short ones instead of one long one. And the first one is from paper 199, section 4, which is the 10th appearance at Philadelphia. And the part I wanted to read was, "Go then into all the world, proclaiming this gospel of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of men to all nations and races, and ever be wise in your choice of methods for presenting the good news to the different races and tribes of mankind. Freely you have received this gospel of the kingdom, and you will freely give the good news to all nations." And the second one is from paper 192, and somebody is sitting on my notes here. And that is 192, section 2, visiting with the apostles 2 and 2. And this particular part is when Jesus is speaking to Philip. "There is but one law to obey. That is the command to go forth proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom. Cease to fear men. Be unafraid to preach the good news of eternal life to your fellows who languish in darkness and hunger for the light of truth."
Wow, you couldn't have got it more closely, Betsy, because this particular session focus is on spreading the word in many different ways and getting very creative in our techniques. And because of that, we're going to have two speakers from the Christ Experiment that is quite unusual. Most of us don't know how to talk to people who are in our families about the book. I mean, I don't. I've had not much success, but a lot of preaching through the years. But we'll turn this over now to Phil Calabrese, who introduces our speakers for the day.
All right. Well, thanks, Diane, and welcome everybody to the Urantia Book Los Angeles Society quarterly. And as Diane said, we have 4 of them. One will probably be in late May or early June. We're always on Saturdays at 3 o'clock. And then we'll probably have a Thanksgiving one in November beside the August celebration of Jesus' birthday around August 21st. So today we are sharing the Urantia book in diverse settings, or at least that's the topic. How do we do that? And there are a lot of different settings. We've got church settings, we've got just the up and down the elevator settings, and just general settings. How do you bring up the Urantia book, and how do you talk about it? The first speaker is April Helen, and she has been working on the art of universal language, and she was born within the Urantia Book Fellowship Stepping Stone program. I mean, the art of universal language was born within that Urantia Book Fellowship Stepping Stone program for their host training for spiritual growth conversations. And since its inception in 2020, the project has been adopted into the Urantia University Institute, as well as the new service community network, SPIRIT, SPIRIT, and being considered for UUI, Urantia University International's teacher education program. So with that, I'd like to give April Helen a little hand before and afterward. Take it away, April Helen.
Thank you, Mr. Phil. Nice to see some familiar faces. Looking around the room, looking around the world. And for those of you who don't know me yet, I was born into the Urantia Book Fellowship's First Society of Oklahoma, the Berkeley Elliott, Tom Allen, Beth Chalice, that whole group, and was carried in a bassinet to study groups and given the choice whether as we aged to join the study group or go off in the back room and watch TV. And out of all the kids, I was usually one of the only ones that went to the study group. And I moved around a lot as a child and into adult years. And that gave me great opportunity to understand from a household of interfaith, not just the Urantia book, but 3 families that raised me having various aspects of spirituality and religious practices. So I definitely come from an interfaith background, which gave me the opportunity to understand the art of universal language. And although it was created formally through the Fellowship Stepping Stones program as a host training for spiritual growth conversations, I have been fascinated by it all my life, especially moving around schools and understanding as a child how much not to say weird words that other kids didn't understand, like Urantia, even though I thought it was cool. So we'll just dive right in. I think I might have screen sharing capability. Yes, I do here. So just give me one moment as I create a slideshow. Let's see, it'll pop up here in just a moment. Yet until then, we're going to be Presenting today on the art of universal language, what I call the art of universal language, exploring, unifying communication. Now it still says that it's working to get the screen share. I'm assuming so. Miss Diane, what is on your screen right now?
We see art of universal language.
And the logo. Nothing.
Yeah, we see the
The owl.
we see the
Yeah.
owl, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the left.
Oh, so it's not in presentation slideshow mode, which I can see here that it's still working to do that. Let's see. Hold on just one moment here.
Technology so great, but so challenging.
Yeah. Oh, challenge is the path. For those of you who caught my supreme being, slides are off to the left. Yes, thanks, Lynn. You know, and it may be my Wi-Fi connection. I'm here at the local library. I'm going to try it one more time.
Well, we did see the sharing, so maybe it's okay. I don't know. It seemed like it was. Could you go to the second
Click on,
slide?
oh, okay. Oh, that looks good.
It's promising. April Helen has started screen sharing.
Well, I don't see it now.
You know, I love creative exploration of trying to figure things out.
Except for times like this.
You are screen sharing. Click to exit full screen.
No.
Yeah, before we were seeing your presentation, but now we aren't. You may have to get it back up before you share.
Yes. And we can live with the little things on the left side. That's fine.
Well, that is very helpful to know. Although I really like the what do you call professionalism?
The presenters, you got a PowerPoint, is that it?
Oh, looky there.
We're not seeing anything but our faces here.
But we're not seeing Sherry now.
Okay, one moment. Thank you for your patience. So one of the key aspects of the art of universal language is existing in full presence and remaining calm. And now my screen's not even doing anything. Am I even here?
Do you want to on it a little
we could go on to Don and have Don say what he was going to say, and then come back to you later if that would help.
And another maybe possibility would be to email the presentation to somebody else who could share the screen while you speak.
Yeah.
Just if you think it might be the Wi-Fi.
Yes, let's.
That might be difficult.
And be Mr. Don, I'd be glad that you take the floor until I figure this out. Or I'll just go second. I won't interrupt what you're doing. Yeah. How about that? We'll just switch places in the agenda. That sounds good.
Good.
Thanks.
Well, Phil, do you want to introduce Don?
Yeah, okay. Don Clementon is an instructor of the Christ Experiment School of Ambassadors. And Jeanette will say something about that perhaps a little later on. Well, she is here, Jeanette Reed. And also he's an advisor at the Bridging UB Revelation to Christian Churches. And He has 3 ministries websites that he's involved in, and 2 Christian men's groups via Zoom. And so I'm very interested in hearing about your experience, Don, and in all of these different settings. So go ahead. Say you can share the screen, or you can talk however you want to do it.
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss because outreach ministry is very important to me. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've been involved with outreach ministry in a way since I was a youngster with my former religious association of Jehovah's Witnesses. Most people are familiar that they go from door to door. And that relationship ended some years ago. But my desire to share the good news of the kingdom never diminished. So when I got the Urantia book through Jeanette and her husband, Jeff, it really gave me focus and direction on what I wanted to do and to have a roadmap of what I wanted to achieve. So I began going to churches, and I'll tell you the reason why I initially began going to visit churches. In my previous religious association, it was discouraged from having involvement with other religions. And so for many years, I had a very one-sided, and I would say even a distorted view of Catholics, Protestants, Pentecostals. I didn't know anything about them. So I embarked on a journey here in Boston, because we have there's a variety of churches here in Boston, of just going to visit them. I wanted to see what their services were like, what they talked about. And whenever I would go to a church, they would say, someone would ask me, well, what brings you here? You're a new face. And I would tell them, well, I'm just trying to get to know my brothers, Christian brothers and sisters from various backgrounds firsthand. And so I'm here visiting you. And I really enjoyed your service. And so that was my introduction. Now, there was something that had given me drive and focus to do what I wanted to do. After my exit from my previous religious organization, the churches in general left kind of a bitter taste in my mouth. It was almost like, I don't ever want to be involved with institutional religion again. And I found that many Urantia brothers and sisters feel the same way. The idea of going into churches again is like counterproductive and going a couple of steps backwards. But there is a passage in paper 170, which is one of the key passages that I really latched on. And it says that the so-called Christian church became the cocoon in which the kingdom of Jesus now slumbers. Now, to me, that was deep, because the Christian church, as we know, has a lot of inherited and flaws, etc., that anyone can just enumerate. Yet we are told that within that flawed institution, the teachings of Jesus are laying dormant in this cocoon. And then in paper 195, the Midwayers tell us that at some point, Jesus needs to be resurrected from this tomb he's been placed in to be manifest to the world. So my thinking was, if that's where the cocoon is and where the where Jesus' teachings lie dormant, how could I be a participant in helping to resurrect the master from this tomb that he's been buried in for 2,000 years and to contribute to the upliftment of the association I'm with? Now, there's just one other passage that's been very important and pivotal in how I move forward. I'm going to share that with you. And that's in paper 190, section 4. And this was one of his Morancha appearances after his resurrection. And he said this. He says, I admonish you ever to remember that your mission among men is to proclaim the gospel of the kingdom, the reality of the fatherhood of God, and the truth of the sonship of man. Proclaim the whole truth of the good news, not just a part of the saving gospel. Your message is not changed because of my resurrection. Your message is not changed by my resurrection experience. My bestowal should help all men to know that they are the children of God. But such knowledge will not suffice if they fail to personally, to faith grasp the saving truth that they are the living souls of the eternal Father. The gospel of the kingdom is concerned with the love of the Father and the service of his children on earth. So when you think about that, that message hasn't changed. And the midwayers help to promote that same idea for us as we move forward. So that's what's in my mind as I move into churches and in church groups. I'll tell you about my experiences in just a moment. But one of the things I have learned is to not have my objective be trying to find Urantia book readers or even to put the book in their hand. The objective is to get people to really recognize their sonship with God. Now, it's easy to conclude that most people that go to church recognize that. But the fact of the matter is most people have not faith grasped that. It's something that's acknowledged. If you ask any Christian, they will tell you, yes, I'm a child of God. But give you an example. While I was attending one Pentecostal church, I would often get them to have discussions about the heavenly life. And we would do what are called, I would try to engage them in what are called thought experiments. What do you think heaven is like after we leave this world? And they're all acknowledged believers in the heavens. But I would then share ideas of what the afterlife could be like. And these were all drawn from the Urantia book. And everyone was just taken because their comprehension of life after death was expanded. But the minister's wife came up to me after one Bible study and she said, you know, Don, I get what you're saying, but I'm just afraid of that idea of dying and being buried in the ground. So what has happened here? This sister would easily acknowledge, oh, I believe in life after death. I believe in heaven, but she has not faith grasped that. So that means that there is a lot of work for us to do. Now, when I go into the churches, I initially go and start to attend the service, the Sunday service, just to meet people. But my objective is to find out, when is your weekly Bible study? Because I found that it's only in the Bible study that there's an interchange where you can actually talk and communicate with people. You can't do that in a Sunday session because people are going there to hear the pastor or the minister deliver a sermon. And after it's over, most people are interested in saying hello and then getting to the nearest Dunkin' Donuts or having lunch somewhere. But when you find out where is the Bible study, that means you can contribute something. And so around Boston, this is pre-COVID, I was attending at any one time 4 churches. I would sometimes jump from one church's Bible study, and the other one would begin a half hour later. I jettison over there in my car in time to be there for that Bible study, and I did this for a couple of years. So when I went into the Bible study, I wanted to raise and elevate the teachings of Jesus in every way I could. And I often mention to those in the Bible study group, I said, whenever I attend the churches, on any given Sunday, you will hear a talk about the things that Paul said, the things that Peter said, stories from the Psalms, stories from the Old Testament. But I said, you rarely hear extensive talk about Jesus himself and the things he taught. And so I would always try to elevate that. The things he said are the most important. And the reason why is because while Paul and the apostles said very good things, and yes, they were inspired by God to say what they said. Yes, there are beautiful things from the Old Testament. None of them can claim that they spoke face to face with the universal Father himself. There's only one person that can claim that, and that's the Master. So anything he says should transcend anything else that anyone else in the Bible has spoken. And because of the fact that I focus so much upon Jesus Christ and the things that are stated in the gospel, I rarely got any pushback from things that I would introduce. And we have this technique that we taught in the Christ Experiment School of Evangelizers called expanding. What's the word for it? Jeanette's there. Help me, Jocelyn.
Yeah, volumizing.
Volumizing, yes. So in other words, you take something that Jesus said and you expand upon it. And it's funny how if you just state things as a matter of fact, because people have not read deeply Jesus' words, if you state it as a matter of fact, they'll accept it. Sometimes I've had slips, and I will actually state, instead of saying that Jesus had a talk with the woman at the well, I think they call her name Narana, and I would slip and say, when Jesus spoke to Narana at the well, and then I'd try to clean it up.
Nalda.
Nalda.
Yeah, Nalda, yes, Nalda. So sometimes things like that would break through, but no one ever would come back and say, what do you mean, Nalda? They were caught up in hearing the Master's words from an expanded viewpoint. And these were always beautiful discussions. So whenever I would talk to people, I remember Jesus' words. He says, always add to what they know. Don't go in trying to take things away. Don't be on a path of trying to point out the errors in what someone believes. Just let it go. You just keep adding truth in there. And I got one of the best compliments I ever got from a One Baptist church group. They said, Don really loves him some Jesus. And that came about because I wasn't delving into other aspects of the Urantia book or the universe. I stuck with the Master's teachings. Now, if we want to get somewhere in church teachings, we also, there has to be a level of agitation, because you don't want to just be there without causing growth. And there's really no growth without some agitation. So I would often ask questions, or if I would hear something someone would say, instead of confronting them head on, I would ask questions. For instance, we were dealing with a passage in one of the gospel accounts where the apostles were upset because there was another man preaching about Jesus, and he wasn't part of the apostolic group. And they wanted to stop him. The apostles wanted to stop him. And so the lesson there was, as long as someone is advancing the kingdom, don't get in their way, So I asked the question, I says, why is it? And this was the fact. I was attending this Bible study group here in Boston. It's a Baptist church. And I would say 2 blocks down, there was another Baptist church. And not far from there, there's another Baptist church. And so I asked them, I said, have you brothers ever visited your friends up the street? And it was like crickets. Nobody said anything. And I said, what about this church? Do you ever go up there and visit those brothers? Just, do you know them? So they said no. So I just asked them, I said, how can we advance Christianity if within our own group of believers, there's not brotherhood among us? So I did an experiment. The Baptist church that I was attending was a predominantly Black church in this area of Boston. And there's another church that I attended on a street in Newbury. It's kind of a very well-known church because they're in a building that's a historical building, and a lot of organists and piano players come there. And I was attending their Bible study too. So one day I asked them, okay, this is how it happened. The question came up, and it had to do with Black Lives Matter. And so this group of predominantly white brothers and sisters were saying, how can we overcome this and bridge this gap? And I said to them, among the Christian community, we should not even be having this kind of a discussion, because there should already be a camaraderie and a love and a family relationship among us. I said, one way we can break down this barrier is if we just start going and visiting our brothers at these churches. So I said, next Sunday, I'm going to be visiting this Baptist church over here. Why don't some of you come with me? And we'll go over and visit together. So there were about 3 or 4 young white brothers and sisters that said, I'll go with you, Don. So I said, okay, come over to my apartment before we go. We're going to have some coffee and, some cakes, and then we'll go over together. So here it is. I'm now walking into this Bible study group, me and these other young people from the other church. Everybody's like looking all puzzled. And when we sat down, I said, brothers, I just want to introduce to you some of my friends from the Church of the Covenant over on Newbury Street. They wanted to see how you worship. And everybody was saying, wow, thank you. They got welcomed. We had a beautiful discussion. And they went back to their church. They enjoyed the service. The young people that came over enjoyed the service. So then later on, I asked the Baptist group, I said, why don't some of you brothers come with me and let's go visit them? Get any volunteers? So that was an opportunity for me to say, so you see what's happening. If we want to advance Jesus' teachings, we really do have to change our mindset. And this is the way that my way of kind of causing the amount of agitation that's needed at times. You have to be very perceptive about this, and you have to know the timing of it and know when to do these things and when not to. The other thing that I believed helped me be successful is when I went in with the attitude that we are all equals. And not this idea that because I've got the Urantia book and my knowledge about many things is expanded, I can't learn anything. And I was always quick to acknowledge when a brother or sister had something valuable to say. I would sincerely commend them. And I would often come away with my own faith built up just to hear their experiences and acknowledge them was tremendous. So out of that grew these Zooms with men's groups. One of the groups meets every other week, and it's called Iron Sharpens Iron. Let me know if I start getting near the end of my time, because it'll slip away from me.
Well, you've said a lot already, Don.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate been taking notes here. Are there questions specifically? Anybody that has a burning question of Don?
Or can think of how they might adapt that to their own church-going or church-going friends that you get together with.
There'll be opportunity later on too.
I just want to hear more of what his experiences are.
Yeah, well, roll on. I'll let you know. You got a few minutes here.
Okay. So I'll let you know how there's two study groups I'm with now by way of Zoom. One is a men's group called Iron Sharpens Iron, and it is an offshoot from one of the churches that I visit. And these guys come together primarily to just help each other out. How do you grow spiritually? How do you grow in your personal life? How do you negotiate problems that you come into that you encounter? It's been very beautiful for me, and the Urantia book has been of tremendous value to me. So the way I use the Urantia book with these brothers is whatever topic we're discussing, I will post something in the chat. So for instance, recently, we had a discussion about how do you deal with difficult people? You want to maintain your balance. You don't want to have critical conflict with people. How do you solve things like this? And there is a passage in the Urantia book. You'll remember it. I can't give you the citation right now, but it says, as you grow older in the kingdom, you should become more intelligent in the way you deal with people. And it talks about how you can greatly diminish interpersonal conflict as you grow older with this wisdom. So I just said, brothers, while we're doing this, I get information from a number of sources, but I want to put something in the chat that I got from one of my spiritual sources, and I pasted that in there. And when they read that, we had the most beautiful discussion pivoting off of that citation. Jesus talked with the young man who was afraid. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That is packed with wisdom. I've made that my own. And so when I'm talking to them, I will share that. And every time I do, our discussion is 1 hour, but they always say, wow, Don, you bring so much to the discussion. And to be honest, it's not just me. Others bring a lot to the discussion too. But what I'm saying, there are ways to use this beautiful Urantia book to get the master's teachings out there by being just like the leaven in the dough. You just keep sewing it in there. And people, they get something from it and they take away from it. Now, that's been a very nice group. But this recent one I've joined with my brother, who's in Texas, this is one of the churches he attends. And when I started, this is about a month ago, it was a real challenge because what they do is they're starting off with a workbook. And the workbook that they're on has to do with the idols of the negative idols that men can fall into, like pornography and love of money and comfort and all of these negative things. So I sat down in the first session I went to, and while the objective is good in overcoming it, I'm telling you, it was such a downer going over all the negative things that a Christian has to face in trying to win God's approval. I mean, they went from one bad thing to another. So after they do the presentation, the men break off into small groups like we do here on this Zoom. And after the first one, the brothers were offered their comments. Oh, yeah, I really appreciated that. And they were talking about, yeah, I used to have that problem. So I just introduced the thought. I said, brothers, I appreciate the thought, but shouldn't we really become more spirit conscious than sin conscious? I mean, if we're constantly occupied with being sinners, first of all, where is our growth? In other words, if we, and this is one of the things that you heard this in traditional Christianity, oh, I'm broken, I'm in repair, I need Jesus. And so I told him, I says, if you're broken and you're in need of repair, what do you have to recommend somebody to come to your religion? If Jesus said you're the light of the world, are you a busted light bulb with just the filament there? That doesn't give any light. If you're the salt of the earth, and they were thinking about that. So I says, there's a scripture that says, whatever things are true, whatever things are of serious concern, whatever things are well spoken of, whatever is true, it says, keep considering these things. So I said, I think that if we became spirit conscious instead of sin conscious, we could elevate our view of ourselves and draw people. And I'm telling you, it's like light bulbs went off in their head. And so this is the beauty of sonship. And that's what Jesus said we should do. And it's an illustration of how people have not faith grasped sonship. Because if you really faith grasp that you are a son of God, you wouldn't have to be arrogant or thinking too much of yourself than you should. You would just simply be a giant walking in the earth, recognizing the spirit forces that are behind you. So I'm enjoying these encounters, and I'm just having so much fulfillment doing this.
Well, Donald, that is amazing. You've had some wonderful experiences, some that none of us have had. I really appreciate what you've said. Marvelous modeling for us. Maybe we could put together something in a little a booklet that would give us some tips to as we go about trying out things we've never done before, even among our friends that we may not be in their church, but even in conversation. This has just been amazing. Does anyone want to make some comments? And then we'll move on to include in this question and answer session some comments from your partner there so that we can see what projects she's up to as well. So anyone want to make some comments here?
Well, it sounds like one of the first step, baby step first, to get out of your comfort zone and maybe target a church or something that, what other place are, strangers are welcome at churches. And, I've been involved in, churches where, every time we would identify all the visitors and, I just really, it's such a great idea to just expand that. And, like by going to a church, it doesn't mean you have to accept all of, what everybody else is saying is true. And so I really like that integrity that you bring to that. And this is something that I'd like to do too. Get out there and see people.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, well, just thank you for the presentation, Dawn. Really, it's inspiring. And I think one of the things that we can do wherever we are is to just trust in the power of Jesus' message. I attend the Episcopal Church right now. And I've attended Unity. It really doesn't matter what group we're in. We can always share the reality of our sonship with God. We also have a reading group in our home, and we do it every winter. We were just finished braiding sweetgrass, and last winter, in the scope of that group, people were asked to bring a quote, and it happens that we have 4 Urantia book readers in our group, although it's a group of 18, and it's interfaith, so we're not focusing on the UB at all. But everybody happened to bring unprepared a quote from the Urantia book for the topic of that meeting. And people were so moved and inspired by those quotes that we ended up getting a couple of new readers for the Urantia book. But that is not the goal of that meeting. The goal was interfaith. And so whatever place you find yourself in, whatever situation, you can always share the gospel. So I really appreciate that inspiration, Donald, and your success in doing that. You do it so naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
So do you want to go to April, Helen, or do you want to say something, have Jeanette say something?
Well, part of Don's presentation includes a question and answer session, and that's what we're in now. And I was hoping that Jeanette would share with us some of the projects she's doing once our questions have concluded with Don.
Okay.
No more questions. Jeanette,
Can I say something now?
Go
I
ahead.
just want to say that, we're part of the Christ experiment, and the church ministry is something that we do. And just some pointers that we learned in our experiences. If you want to be most effective, you probably would want to pick smaller churches, more community-based churches, like maybe the Catholic Church might not be the spot, but where, churches that are not so structured and they have their, real strict doctrinal, doctrines, that situations where maybe the people are allowed to talk in the session. Maybe they ask questions and the patrons or the parishioners can make a comment or something. Churches that are like open like that, you'll probably have the most success. Me, when I go to a church, my objective is to reach the pastor, whoever the leader is. And sometimes they have like lunches afterwards where you can go, and I'll kind of make my way, and it takes a little time, but get into the seat where the pastor is and ask questions and be very curious, And in one instance, I think it was after the Easter celebration or something, he was talking about, how, the rocks will cry out, and he was, just talking about how, how divine and how powerful God is, and he can make rocks talk. Mm-hmm. And I said, I thought about that so many times, and I'm thinking, is there another meaning to that? Could there be another meaning to it? And this is what I came up with. I said, I'm talking to him. This is what I came up with. I said, what if Jesus was saying that the rocks will cry out in the sense that the people will stone you and you'll hear from those rocks. He goes, oh my God. That's what that means. And it just changed him completely. And I know from this point on, whenever he talks about the rocks crying out, he's going to use that example. And there are other things that I kind of said, well, that's really interesting. I said, and I have a question. What do you think about this possibility? And we'll talk about that. And he'll go, oh. So I think I'm affecting him. And by affecting him, I'm affecting the whole congregation.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually he asked me to conduct a Bible study at the church. And I did, but I stuck with the Bible, you know, and I enhanced some of the explanations with the Urantia book. And unfortunately, COVID hit, so we didn't go to church anymore. And I moved away, so I haven't, you know, gotten back there. But when you go to the church, not just the parishioners or the, you know, the people who are showing up that you want to uplift, enhance, but also if it's a kind of a church where you can get to the leader, you're going to be most effective because he's going to take what he has learned from you and give it to the church. And Don has that experience as well. I think he eventually gave a Urantia book to one of the leaders. But I think a lot of the things that Don is speaking with him about are coming out in his sermons. And so it's really having a broader effect.
Oh, great idea.
Now, I want to tell you something that we're doing, but I want to wait toward the end, you know, and let April Helen give her a portion. I just want to give you a 5 or 10 minute update on a project that we have. But I think it'll be better because it's an afterthought, and I'd really like to hear what April has to say. Is that okay?
Can I just share something very brief with you? Because I gave you the cliff notes of my experience, and I want you to understand that I have spent the places I've been successful with, I've spent a long time there. I went in, and for the first couple of weeks, I was really silent. And I would offer very little comments. I just wanted people to be comfortable with me and not think of me as a know-it-all who's just coming in here. So I took a long time just to lay low. I just listened and listen and listen. And then slowly I started engaging. And then I would engage more and more after I had been there a while. And the churches that I was successful with, I spent over a year, close to sometimes 2 years with. There are some that I just had got no traction with. And when I found that the case, I just leave and go somewhere else. But know that the successes that I explained to you were over a protracted period of time. So you got to go in with a long range view, not a idea that you're going to turn things around on a dime.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. Good advice. So April Helen, how are we doing?
Yeah, well, my friend Mr. Peter Lawrence is going to help me with the screen share. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that whole presentation was like, oh, that's Art of Universal Language. That's Art of Universal Language. These are tactics. And so it's, you know, it's always synchronistic about how things manifest. And I'm kind of glad to be going now. Something specific that really stood out, definitely that last point of the long-term eternal perspective that faith grasp that Mr. Don was talking about helps us to be present in a different way while living on this planet. And also another takeaway was not having the objective of getting them to be readers, getting anybody to be a Urantia book reader. And when I think, and this will come out in the presentation, but just to make it really specific, when I think about sharing the teachings of Jesus, and it comes through in all of the work projects, service projects, and my life that I exude, is living in integrity with higher consciousness values. And so really it's the living that we are that embodiment And really, we don't have to say anything, because once you shine your light just so, they're going to want to know what you have, and they're going to ask. So as we move right along, Mr. Peter, you want to share your screen? Thank you so much.
Not seeing it at the moment. Let me check again.
Bill, do
Oh,
you make him available?
Yeah, anybody can share. Sharing is open.
sharing is open. Nice.
That's a motto for the rest of your life.
Here we
Well,
go.
here we go. Yeah, and just press that slideshow. There we go. Awesome. So the tagline for all of this work is exploring unifying communication. So the next slide, Mr. Peter, asks the question. You can go ahead and press the space bar or the arrow to the right, and it'll go to the next.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the pictures out of the way. So I guess is that the one?
There you go. Yeah. And so what does it mean to you? So just take a moment. Whenever I say universal language, I get mixed reactions. Like, what is that? How? And there's actually, if you research it, something that comes up is someone back in the late 1800s actually tried, and someone here on this call might know the name of that person, tried to establish an actual vernacular universal language. And that is actually not what I am talking about here. So the next slide. So one definition that you can consider.
This one thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think it's okay. I think the space bar or the right.
Spacebar's not working. Right arrow's not working.
Esperanto, right?
No.
The name of the universal language was Esperanto.
Yes, yes. Who said that? Is that Betsy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that I saw. So my definition is respecting and understanding that each near 8 billion humans on the planet right now has their own unique language. So we're not talking vernacular here. We're talking about each person having their own language. So the next slide is communicating in such a way that you are being and doing the greatest good for the greatest number of people for the greatest length of time. So the next slide, the art of universal language, exploring unifying communication with the intention of loving social engagement and global transformation. And the next slide, one of our quotes, oh, Mr. Peter, good. You can see when I click, so I don't have to keep saying it, right? You can see my image.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So this is one of my favorite UB quotes that promotes this idea of universal language, that language differences have ever been a great barrier to peace. And although in reference to the context of the Urantia book, this is actually talking about, in my understanding of the passage, is actually talking about a vernacular language when we're heading into the era of light and life. However, we're not there yet, I don't think. I think we have a little bit ways to go. And yet, let's make one up. Let's create a universal language that promotes peace, ensures culture, and augments happiness. And so in influencing the expanding evolutionary mind, this is another great one from the UB. The power of an idea that you're conveying to someone is not in its reality or reasonableness, but rather in its vividness and its universality of its ready and simple application. There's I think it's Einstein who said something like, if you don't know how to tell a 5-year-old what you're talking about, some grand idea that's super complex, then you actually don't know about it yourself in reality. So we're really taking any high concept, and this is one of the reasons why we created spiritual growth conversations through the Stepping Stones program, which I'll talk about later. Yet getting these high concept UB into whomever you're speaking to, whatever audience. So here's some tactics on this next slide, Mr. Peter, that you have probably heard of. Universal language, speak their name, right? Dale Carnegie, that's #1 in How to Win Friends and Influence People. Know their name and say it because it's their favorite word in their language. Know their name. Be anti-fragile. Mr. Don, he lifted up always asking questions. Discern when to give advice. You know, that's a real not unsolicited advice, but there are some times that it is appropriate. Avoid jargon. You can read this list. I love this last one, and Don lifted this up as well. Continuously, simultaneously being a student teacher, having that teacher student teacher mind, remaining curious. So you can certainly, if at any time that you want this presentation deck, I will send it to you so you can have a copy of that list. So the next one, universal language, is easy peasy. So one of the best ways to learn, some of you may know, is making acronyms out of things. So we have 6 easy pillars here at the Art of Universal Language. What's on the next slide? The 6 easy pillars are preparations. This is preparing through intention setting. Existing in full presence. Oh, keep on that slide, please. And awareness of audience, consciousness of expressing higher values, inquiry at the fore, and exchanging language of not just words, but energetic frequency, thoughts, body language, words, and actions. And all of these are not linear. They're not one after another. They are all 6 simultaneous in your communication management skills. And they go from inner foundations to outer expressions. So the first, preparations through intention setting. This is not only with yourself, yet whatever group that you find yourself in. So whether you like to pray or worship or meditate together, say a few words of centering, have a centering moment, whatever that looks like to you and your group, it is powerful to prepare through intention setting. And one of my favorite tactics is remembering the laws of observation. This is one of a modern teacher with ancient wisdom, Red Hawk. His practice speaks about body scanning. You may have seen in that other slide. So this is always remaining relaxed. We have more clear channels of thinking and feeling and doing when we are present with full relaxation in the body, releasing tension. And then honesty, being radically honest with yourself first, and therefore you can be more honest with others. Patience, we spoke about this earlier with Mr. Don, without needing to interfere with God's timing or with the inner work of others. And number 4, full acceptance without judgment. I love all of that. And that, although is a very simple flow, it is profound when you put it into daily experience. So one of Jesus's ways of preparations through intention setting is unbroken communion with God. So again, whatever that looks like to you, you are now existing. Here's our E in ECPC. The next slide is existence. Existence and, oh, can someone mute out? Bless you, but let's all mute out. This existence in full presence. So I look at all life is the prep season. That's one of my favorite paradigms to live in. So once you are grounded in the prep season, you're living in full presence. So this is just an extension of the prep. And that next slide has this wonderful quote on, again, this is the Jesus Papers. He taught the most when he said the least. So there may be many moments of discerned silence and just living and bearing the fruits of the Spirit to unburden people's souls, to being a sympathetic and understanding listener, existing in that full presence. And with this, we invite our spirit helpers. We have so many available to us as we exist in this full presence, tapping in to the presence of the thought adjuster, the mind adjutant, spirit of truth, Holy Spirit. When I say specific angels, since being raised with the Urantia book and understanding the different orders of angels and beings, I now have really highlighted in certain areas of my life where I want my petitions to go. So to possibly have that more clear communication with different orders of beings. So that's something that you might want to try on for size. So ECPC, the A, awareness of audience. You know, you can ask yourself what capacity, this is the next slide, what capacity of understanding is the audience? What is their level of receptivity? Identifying their level of communication. What is the vibe in the room of the audience, of the space? And again, just like all 6 of these pillars are simultaneous, this awareness of audience, recheck constantly of where we at. You know, have you lost them? Okay, now it's time to move on. Or are they getting excited? Are they as excited as you and they want to hear more? That is definitely a discerning piece. Mr. Don alluded to that as well, that he went into some churches and they were ripe and then some weren't. So he moved on. And this audience awareness, it's not a judgment thing, right? It goes back to that quote. It's figuring out what level of understanding that they are so that you can meet them where they're at. Reading the room so you can understand. Oh, you've moved on. Okay, I will too. And it's about this education of the business of living. And so the awareness of audience piece is highlighted in that number 7. It's having this cosmic insight and spiritual discernment so that it goes back to the preparations through intention setting and then existing in full presence and having this audience awareness come through moment by moment with spiritual discernment. I love that. All right, so the next pillar, the consciousness of expressing higher consciousness values. That's a mouthful. I'm sure I could shorten it. However, it's pretty powerful when you think of really enlisting higher consciousness And I love this quote. It's a little lengthy, but you can see in the larger print bold, it's all about the fruits of the Spirit in our lives. And really, like I said earlier, everyone's a salesman. We all have something to sell. Even just the life that we lead is selling yourself. So you bearing the integrity of through the fruits of the Spirit or of that is the product, and people will then see you and know you through your actions, energetic frequency, body language, words, thoughts. So the list of the fruits of the Spirit, one of the lists, this is the fruits of the divine Spirit. And I think there's two other lists in the UB, but this is the one that I mostly come back to. I think the three lists that are in the UB are for individual groups and then global. They go in a ascensionary pattern. And so I love how these have double, an adjective to it as well. So it gets more bang for your buck for sure on these identifying the fruits of the divine Spirit. And then the next slide is a longer list that Angie Thurston and I, through the Progress Project, you may have heard about, have identified, and we got these out of the Jesus Papers when we thought about what Don was alluding to earlier. And what we've come up with is this value expression, especially in the Acme of Religious Living, that paper. And so again, if you want this list, I'd be glad to give it to you. And I'm always open to hearing more of the ones that we don't have on the list. So that next slide is coming through easy peasy, the I, bringing inquiry to the fore. It remains at the fore. So as you prepare in your intention setting, we're asking for inner guidance. Living in the existence of full presence, we associate with our spirit helpers. As we're discerning our audience, we're seeking spiritual discernment. So this section is literally about the questions that you pose and how you pose them to draw out the deep inner sharing of your audience. And Mr. Don was definitely lifting up this aspect. Jesus asks them questions. The interview would usually begin by asking questions and then end by their asking him questions. So we can learn a lot by that. And as Mr. Don was speaking about how his patience, it took a while, that also has within that action of that year-long endeavor to slowly integrate, it's a trust relationship. It's the building of trust in that one-on-one conversation or group conversation or community that we can continue to ask questions. And even if we think we know the answer in 1 year, the next year, their answer is probably going to be different. So continuing to ask questions, where you're at now, recheck in, recheck, mic check, check. So the next slide is an adaptation from the Center for Courage and Renewal. And they have identified the best single mark of an honest, open question is that the questioner could not possibly anticipate the answer to it. So not leading to advice giving, very open-ended and thought-provoking questions. I really appreciate that. There's a whole article on that, and I can link it to you if you want it. So coming to the end of ECPC is literally exchanging language. And again, it's not just your words, right? It's the frequency you hold, the vibe, The thoughts that you're thinking, are they integral with your values? The actions, your body language. And so this is a good a reminder that expression must be restated every time the dictionary of human language is revised. And my addition to that is the human language is revised with each unique personality. And so continue to ask those questions as you exchange energetic frequency, thoughts, body language, words, and actions, not just your words. It's the whole embodiment of you in all of your different elements and layers. So the key portions where we can learn a lot, these of which I've identified, these sections in the UB are just so rich with simple truth that we can take and paraphrase and share them with the world in different situations as you pass by, in an elevator, at the coffee shop, in a church group, Bible study, anything. And whatever is calling to you, whatever rings most interesting to you, read those and study those and see how you can paraphrase to different age groups. That's something that I think is really valid, especially when we're talking about spiritual growth conversations and hosting them. All right, so here's some other techniques you may have seen. I think global travel is one of the best ways to up level our art of universal language, being of service, especially to those who are most unlike you. And we have a course coming up in the School of Service, which I'll tell you about. Practice of self-care that alludes or links back to intention setting and living in full presence. I'm sure some of you have heard of nonviolent and compassionate communication, attending the Parliament of the World's Religions, hosting spiritual growth conversations, training in wise heart competencies. The list goes on. You can even see I put healthy nutrition through sleep, food, and movement in there to stay centered in your animalistic body so that your mind can fully embrace life. So, as I was saying, our course coming up through the School of Service, this, if you haven't heard, is a new offering in 2 settings, one for your Rancho book readers through UUI, and the next slide gives you what our next course is all about. We're having registration in late March, and it'll be a 7-month exploration of the School of Service and all things service. So you can see here the titles of the themes for each month is actually 2-pronged, where you can see the second half of those themes are the pillars of the art of universal language. So for your Rancho book readers, we're going to have a lot of practice in each of the pillars that we spoke about in regards to service in each of these areas, service as an individual, through families, to friends and coworkers, and so on. And we'd love to support you in that way. We have peer-to-peer empowerment, service leader mentorship, and we'd love you to join us. And something that has emerged out of the School of Service is the Spirit Network. And this is all things service, community, again, free courses, membership, mentorship, peer empowerment. And we have a service celebration coming up March 30th. I can put all of my email information in the chat after this presentation. And as you can see, that second bullet point, to enter into Spirit Network, different from what we're offering at UUI, Spirit is a broad spectrum service community. And so the Art of Universal Language is required. Although it's a free community network, the Art of Universal Language is required. So that's why we are offering it to you. And then lastly, spiritual growth conversations. We're always looking for hosts. And we do have a host training through the Art of Universal Language. On this next slide, you can see that spiritual growth conversations are respectful. Oh, you skipped one. Adventurous and spirit-focused discussions. We provide a space for participants to host, to explore our inner lives and practicing the Art of Universal Language. And I know some of you on this call have joined me in those conversations, and it's definitely a practice ground to get higher and more complex concepts into whomever your audience is without using Urantia ease. And we have these conversation agreements within spiritual growth conversations, which I think on the next slide, you can take into any of your conversations. And again, this is a good one to, especially in challenging conversations that you have with your family or friends or business partners, to ask and invite them to choose to be sincere and authentic and listen with curiosity. Provide a safe space, commit to being contributors, remaining focused on the topic. And I love this last one, sharing generously our unique adventures for the purpose of being co-creators for the supreme, our collective spiritual growth. So again, you can, I'll put that email in the chat. And this is the last slide. Number 50 here, as you click forward, and it gives one of my favorite, I alluded to it earlier, admonishing us to let our light so shine. So knowing your audience, don't blind them, yet meeting them where they're at and shining just so that our fellows will be guided into new and godly paths of enhanced living. I love that. We are effective reflectors for dissemination of this light of life. Yay. Thank you, Mr. Peter, for helping me with that. Very good, very good.
Thanks a lot, April Holland. That's quite a program that you have put together there.
Yeah, you put a
Any
lot of
questions
time.
or comments from our group here? In the meantime, I noticed that my good friend Richard Prince has joined us on Zoom, and I know he has a few things to add. And I think Mark Erickson said would like to say something about his experiences too. But all in good time, and I guess we got to get back to Jeanette as well. So questions, comments about April Holland's presentation?
Yeah, you can unmute yourself before you talk, of course. And that was a tremendous presentation. You put in a lot of hours on this. It's very clear. This has been years in the making, right?
Yes, it has. Thank you so much.
Maybe all your life in the making. You've done a marvelous, magnificent thing here. I wanted everyone to know that these sessions are recorded. And then Mark can tell us how to access those recordings on the internet. Mark?
Well, I'm the one who has the recording, and then we'll send out a link so that people can get to it. Yeah, and of course I sent it to Mark, and then he sends it out. So that's another.
Yeah, it's posted on the internet so that I would like to watch this one over and over and even have a copy of their slides if you had them. It's tremendously educational and will come in handy for years. Anyone
I
else?
found myself rapidly trying to do screenshots of some of those things because some of the quotes that you had there were just spot on. The way that the LA group pulled us together, we were so compatible with what we were trying to do. I really appreciated your effort, April.
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Donald, for sure.
Yeah, that would be great if you could put the presentation in the chat or something too, because that was definitely read over worthy.
Yes, I can. I can do that right now, Miss Betsy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we have some other experiences from the group that are pretty amazing. Mark, can you address how you managed to be the one who gives the sermon?
And yeah,
Mark is our president.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
yeah.
can hear
Mark
you.
Erickson is the treasurer and substitute secretary for UBLA and a lot of other things. Go on, Mark.
Well, I just wanted to make just a couple of cogent points about we had the opportunity as members of the Unitarian Universalist Church here in Anaheim to actually preach the sermon once a year to the church members. That was because, first of all, the church is so small. And I do tell you that probably this isn't going to happen unless it's a really small church. This church is small and only had a part-time minister, which means the minister only delivered a sermon twice a month. And they were always looking for outside speakers to provide the presentations on the additional 2 or 3 Sundays of the month. So we offered our availability to talk about the Urantia book and put forward some ideas from the Urantia book. And we were lucky enough to do it for about 3 or 4 years in a row until, as a matter of fact, up until COVID. And then that ended. One of the reasons why we were able to do that was because we were members and participated so fully in everything else at the church up until the time that opportunity became available to us. And so, but it certainly is not something that came naturally to the Unitarian Universalists. If you know them, most of them, at least half of them, are atheists. So, and I still don't understand why an atheist wants to get up early on Sunday and go to church, but they do. And it's usually to a Unitarian Universalist church when they go. And the only other comment that I wanted to make about those presentations, which I figured out pretty quickly, was the Urantia book is so, the prose in the Urantia book is so beautiful, even poetic. And yet, when you use the book and read from the book, don't expect and don't anticipate that the people are going to have the same kind of experience of those words that you have. And I do recommend very highly that you personalize anytime you read from the Urantia book. When you give a presentation, personalize it. Explain why you have picked that particular selection, and then also try to also explain how you responded to it or how you reacted to it, and offer the opportunity of sharing anybody else's experience to those words while you're delivering them. And that's really the only big major point. It's very important, I think, to personalize any presentations from the Urantia book. We had a good experience, but we didn't we didn't come by any readers. No additional participation from the Unitarian Universalists, but we're still welcome members. So that's nice to know. Anyway, that's basically what I had to say.
Well, thank you, Mark. And you may not know the repercussions of your talk. You may never know who went out and bought the book.
Well, that's true.
And also, I mean, that kind of echoes what Don was saying about how it's not actually the book, it's the teachings of the book. So
That's right. Exactly.
Well,
It was
thank-
fun. It was fun to do it.
yeah.
Well, there's someone else who's not here, but I know that Stephanie Schaefer is in a position, she creates classes for the Unity Church. Love to know how she managed to do that, but
Well, Peter Lawrence and I are on the team with Christina Seaborn and Stevie Schaefer, and one of my service partners, Darla Hughes, with Spiritual Growth Conversations. Christina is leading the team effort of taking what Angie Thurston and I have created in the Progress Project and taking it out of the UB community, which we wanted for so long. And this is our first effort in taking it into the broad spectrum, in this case, Unity. So that is very exciting. Thanks for bringing that up.
yeah. Well, we'll look for
see
further
Lynn
notices about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think Lynn has her hand up.
I see that Lynn has her hand up, but you're also muted and we don't see you.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was my turn to speak.
Yeah, well, all right. Ask a question.
I was just going to tell Mark just a piece of my journey. A friend of mine took me to a Unitarian church where she'd grown up and wanted to expose me. I was doing a lot of looking around for communities to be part of spiritually. And I ended up knowing more people there than she did. And the gentleman, the lay gentleman who was not the minister, again, like your church had a part-time and they had a gap in having someone. And he gave a sermon, and it turns out that it was based on the Urantia book. So the very first time I heard words from the Urantia book was in that kind of a community. And I went up to him afterwards to learn more about where his information came from and perhaps join a group I heard he had. But that didn't happen, and he didn't mention the book. And it was a very short conversation. But I moved not long after that. And in the community I moved to, I ran into Linda and Bob Uselli. Our daughters were in gymnastics together, and I purchased my first book from them. So it was so interesting that was my first introduction without knowing what it was. So see, your words might have more impact than you know.
Sounds like the angels were working on you with all those coincidences.
I'd like to.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. So
I'd like to add something. I'd like to add something in here too. Our own society is working on a project that will bring the Urantia book in unconventional avenues out into the world. And so we have adopted the motto or the mantra of the fellowship. And Phil, maybe you could give it in its full glory. We are creating a community.
You're talking about the new purpose, at least when we
Right. It's so poetic.
Yeah, I thought you wrote it down.
I've got it. I know we're creating a community of well, I guess I don't have it memorized of
I think
spiritual people who want
yeah,
to
let me see if I can render it
do better than I'm doing.
The purpose we're thinking of shortening the purpose to fostering a spiritual community dedicated to learning, sharing, and living the teachings of the Urantia book. That's pretty close to it.
Yes, that is. And we've worked out something for all three of those models. The learning, there's so many different ways to learn the book. I filled up a worksheet with them. Ways to learn the Urantia book, unconventional ways. And then, of course, the learning and the teaching list turned out to be almost the same. We can create videos, learn how to create videos that illustrate the teachings. We can get our public speaking skills up, and we can, yeah, we can create more of these soul groups that are alternatives to the study group where you're not reading the book, but you're sharing. And those become very intimate, tight communities when you share things of your experiences of living the teachings, personal sharings and inspired realizations. And then you can go to UUI classes, of course, to learn the book. And you can introduce others to that book, to that group of learnings. We can do group service projects. We can do field trips. There's a kindness project that we'd like to see started. And of course, the values clarification that April Helen talked about. Create movies, go to movie night. That's our group is starting of inspiring movies. I've written down maybe 30 movies that people said that was the best movie they ever saw. And so we'll be filming them, showing them maybe once a month in the coming. And we can go to Venmo where there are videos to watch that you learn deeper aspects of the book that people are sharing. The UUI has many of those wonderful, wonderful videos, and then introduce others through the videos. And we can write skits for kids in school to perform and create ethical dilemmas that teachers can use with high school, even elementary school kids. Anyway, that's just a sampling of the many ways we can bring the book into the world that aren't actually reading the book, but in much of it living, much like April Helen described. Perhaps now we can hear from Jeanette.
Well, before Jeanette, I'd like to introduce my friend Richard Prince, who was instrumental in translating the Urantia book into Spanish, together with his buddy Douglas Frazier, I believe. And Dick has had some experiences with various churches that I inveigled him to say some words about. We see your name, Dick, but we don't see you. Are you, I gather you can speak, right?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
I've got this little thing that says start video. I've hit it 2 or 3 times and it just doesn't,
you
doesn't seem to want to do it.
there's a little thing next to the stop video that it's a little caret. Hit that at the bottom, and it should start your video. It says stop video on the Zoom screen, but there's another spot. There's a little caret to the right of it, I think, and that would allow
Not
you
on
to.
mine.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, I guess I can't.
They don't need, Phil, they don't need to see my face anyways.
All right, yeah, all right. Let's just hear you.
Yeah. And you know, with all that, I've frankly forgotten what your question was.
Well, I know you've had opportunities to bring the Urantia book, or the ideas or the teachings of it to some of the churches you've been visiting in the past. Well, one way to share the Urantia book is translated into another language, which you've
Why
done.
don't I take that, Phil? Let me just, because we
Yeah.
all go to churches and they're all different and we all have our unique experiences there. And I'm not sure mine are worth that much commentary. But one thing that was fun back when I was working on the translation, I was down in Colombia with people who had heard a lot about it. They were interested in it. They'd even had small snippets of it translated. But there was a lot of interest in the book, and yet they came from a traditional Roman Catholic background. So I would get questions like, well, what does the book say about the Virgin Mary? What does the book say about the virgin birth? What does the book say about the resurrection? I think most people that you're going to be running into in organized religious settings are going to have their hills on which they want to take a stand. And I would just encourage someone, and I mean, I know how I did it for myself, but that I'm not suggesting it would work for anyone else. But yeah, I would encourage people, if you're going to go into places where people have more or less doctrinal hills on which they stand, to think about those in advance. They're pretty obvious. You reflect on it, take a look at church teachings, and come up with your own words. I think people will know when you're being a parrot and just reciting a book or reading a few things with them. And I know that the people I've seen talk so far have been with the teachings a long time and would be skilled at doing this. But we can always improve. And the more robust a response of your own that you can come up with, that's philosophically based, that's logical, that can perhaps tie into some timeless teachings like Aquinas or Augustine or Teilhard or many others, I think will go a long ways towards opening the door.
Okay. So prepare to answer questions, hard questions like, what about the blood sacrifice of Jesus? Have some answer to that instead of when it gets to you, oh yeah, and not immediately contradict what you know they believe.
Exactly. I'll give you one example. I remember that I was out with a number of folks one evening at a dinner down there, and several of the women drew me aside and asked me, what does the Urantia book say about the virgin birth? And I said, well, it's entirely consistent with St. Mark, St. John, and the Apostle Paul. And a look of relief passed over their faces. And then they began to look around and they realized they weren't really quite sure what Mark, John, and the Apostle Paul said. And one of them finally said, well, what exactly did they say? And I said, they said nothing. They said nothing. Well, it was never mentioned. Both the earliest gospel and the latest gospel in the earliest writings that we have today from Paul from AD 49 and on say nothing. And I didn't go on and try and overwhelm them with the argument, well, surely, ladies, if it was important, they'd have put it in there. You're not going to win any friends that way. But simply leaving them with a reality that they can go back and look with their own Bibles at home and say, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Important to be a little subtle at times.
I think so.
I can remember that one.
All right. Well, Jeanette, I think we're ready for you.
Okay, I just want to say that that was a brilliant response. And I can think of, other areas when people ask about, the harmony between the Urantia book and the Bible. Because, my point of view is that there's no real conflict between the two books. What the conflicts that may arise are between the Urantia book and Christian theology, but not the Bible. And
I might offer one more thing, and then I promise I'll put my mute on and zip it up. When you come up with conservative people that are more or less attached to the concept that the Bible is inerrant, it's important to have a response. Because if you simply say, oh, no, it's not, you're not going to win many hearts and minds with that. But when I find people that are pushing me that way, I turn to my brothers and sisters in the Roman Catholic Church, surprisingly enough. In Vatican II, they had a number of policy statements, so to speak. They called them codicils. And one of them was about the question of biblical inerrancy. And the conference came out with something that they call verbum Dei, which meant word of God. And it ran something like this. And it was one of the shorter of the codicils that came out of the convention. It said, yes, the Bible is the word of God, but it's in the words of men, and so fallible, because men are sinners and fallible. And so it's okay to do biblical exegesis and criticism and historical criticism, and dig deeper always without fear of unearthing some problem textually, because it is, after all, in the words of men. And, it's not to say that we've got to wrap ourselves in the ermine of the Catholic Church, not at all. But it is the largest group of believers in Jesus Christ in the world. It is 2,000 years old, and it's going to have some cachet, even with most of the fundamentalists that you're going to be talking to. And I think if you've got somebody so far back in the cave that they can't hear that, you're probably just best moving on.
Yes. Jesus said at times, you have to move on. That fella is simply not interested or not ripe for talking to about these things. So that's another thing we need to be able to ascertain. Very good. Well, thanks a lot, Dick. We appreciate your input on that from your experience in both of those areas of translating the book as a whole. It took about 7 years of his life, and
into which language?
Into
Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were the second one. The first one was French, and that was one that the foundation attempted to control for 25 years because they didn't like the translation as it was done. And so there was a lot of resistance within the Board of Trustees to do another one. And it took about 7 years of behind the scenes work before we could begin.
Wow.
Because I had to had to overcome a lot of resistance and worry, frankly. They didn't want to be seen as someone that had dropped the ball. And so, yeah, it then took 7 years and really wonderful collaboration with a Colombian guy named Douglas Frazier that Phil has mentioned. And I could go on, but we're not here to talk about translations. But it was a wonderful experience, and it got me into a number of things that I guess I would say allow me to, well, mention a couple of the things that I already have. I mean, it's helpful to have tools in your toolbox when you're talking about the Urantia book, at least in my view, that is not something. It's something other than the text of the book itself.
Yeah, good to know about that codicil.
Yeah, Verbum Dei. You can. I have the Vatican website bookmarked and look at it from time to time, and you could go there and look it up, and it's right there from the Second Vatican Council. I mean, there's enormous resources that can be used to, I would say, strengthen the credibility of what you're trying to say about the Urantia book without necessarily having to feed the book itself back to them. If that's your only tool, you're coming into it with one hand empty.
Yeah.
It's a piece of wisdom, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just be a Urantia book reader.
okay, so I know we're getting close to the end, so I'm gonna try to be as brief as I can, but I wanted to share
We've got, you know, at least
5:30.
40 minutes.
Oh,
yeah.
5:30. I thought it was 5 o'clock.
No.
Okay. So, you know, unity is a topic that's kind of hot in the community. People are talking about it a lot and we're trying to achieve it. So a group of readers, not the Christ Experiment, but I'm one of the members in this small group of readers who are trying to get together to promote an annual celebration of the Remembrance Supper on April 6th, which is the day of the original supper. And what we're trying to do, and like we're just from different ministries, you know, around the community, we're trying to get people to commemorate or celebrate together on that same date, the same time across the globe. And what we're encouraging is for people to get together in small groups and conduct the Remembrance Supper, knowing that they are doing this in conjunction with the whole world of readers and all who want to participate. And we think of it as, you know, what is the celestial family going to be seeing that night? They'll be seeing, you know, a large community of readers or lovers of Jesus or interested persons acknowledging the master and what he did, remembering his life in the way that he suggested. So we're going to be sending out, now this is something the Christ Experiment has been doing for 10 years. So there are people who have done this with us, but now it's sort of broadening out and other groups are saying, hey, this is a good thing that's going to promote unity, because even though we're doing different things, you know, April Helen's doing the Art of Universal Language, we're doing the Christ Experiment. You've got the Center for Unity out there. You've got a lot of different ministries out there. They're doing their own thing, but this is an event that we can come together as a community and one voice for the master. And so we're hoping that we can motivate the entire community actually to do this together on this one night. So we're going to be sending out an invitation to all of the societies, like we'll send one to UBLA. It'll give some information on not just, you know, inviting you to do this as a family, but also some other information that we're providing. And then we notice that there are a lot of people who do not have someone to share that evening with, you know, intimately in their homes. And so we're going to be opening up some Zoom rooms in various time zones so that people can log on and then have a community to have the communal meal with on that night, you know, with fellow believers. And we think that this could be a really important step toward even organizational unity, or, you know, unity of the readership, and inviting other Christians to join us into something that Christians recognize as well. They just don't know about the date. So we're picking this date, which is the date Jesus chose himself. And this is the only thing that he asked us to do. There's a lot of stuff in the Urantia book, but this is the only one that he specifically asked us to do. We do his birthday. You know, we do we're doing the Jubilee now. People are doing that. But the Remembrance Supper is the one thing he asked us to do. So as I said, we're going to be sending out some invitations. We're going to send to UBLA. And I hope that maybe, Diane, you would maybe send it out to the members so they would know. If there's anybody here who wants to get a personal invitation, we'll just put your email address in the chat and I'll take it down and we'll be sure to send you an invitation personally. But this is not just like the first Remembrance Supper. I think the midwear said it was without ecclesiastical sanction. So this is not like there's going to be an officiate and we all get together and come, you know, to this big, large meeting. These are small, intimate groups. But the key is that we're doing it together, same time, same evening, on behalf of our master. So I hope this is something that interests you all and that you will all be interested in, you know, joining with us. We're starting in English, but we hope that English, Spanish, and French. And we're hoping that other languages around the world will get wind of what we're doing and want to do it with us. And then we eventually encompass the whole globe. It may take us a few years to get there, but we want to start. And we're starting this April 6th on a Saturday. So look forward to the invitation, and the information on the invitation tells you more about how to link to the Zoom if you're alone. We encourage you to do it in person with your family and friends, but if you just don't have anybody, then join the Zoom so that you'll have brothers. Of course, Jesus is with you either way, but you know, it's a communal meal, so it'd be great to do it with others. So I see a couple of email addresses. I'll write them down and we'll be sure and send you the invitation directly, but we'll also be sending it to UBLA and to many other groups, and they can send it out to the mailing list, and hopefully we'll have a great Remembrance Supper this year.
Well, thank you, Zanette. Sounds like a great idea. And you're right, that was the one thing we were asked to do. Yeah. And I would ask if everyone would put their emails and their names into the chat. We'd like to be able to contact you directly, and phone number too, if you wish. That would be enormous help. That way we can keep you up to date on things you may not want to miss if this kind of topics have been of interest to you. You know, there have been some other ways of sharing the book that I thought were pretty clever as well. I don't know if any of you know about Ted Blaney. He's the head of the area coordinating committee for the sections of the United States, I guess. And they have come up with what they call the mini libraries. And they get permission to mount a post in a little box, and they stock it with Urantia books and other materials of Urantia book origin, takeoffs. And they have found that they put the story of everything. That's a book written by one of our own, Michelle Clemish. And that's the most popular book that disappears. And they raise money and they stock these all over the Midwest, because that's mostly the area that he coordinates. And I've asked him to give me the plans for how you build a little mini library box and how they get permission to put them on different people's property and how they divvy up the job of keeping them stocked and what materials are the best to put in them. So they're totally free. People bring books and put them in as well as take them out. But that's a very passive but active something to do. You get to the pearly gates, they're going to ask you, what did you do? Sorry. They're going to ask you, what actions did you take? You know, sooner or later, you have to do something. And so this is a doing that you can put on your resume when you get there. There's many suggestions from April Helen and some of our own projects here at UBLA that we're initiating about how to get the book out in unconventional ways through the schools and even letters to the editor. where you make comments on what's going on in the community from the Urantia solutions point of view. And more ideas are coming in all the time. So please give us your email addresses and tell us if you would like to join some kind of a work team and work together with others who are furthering the book, are the teachings, are just ministering to people who need some help here and there. That would be another action, and we could practice our skills at being all the things that April Helen is advocating we be as listeners in ministry. We'd love to have you join us. There are some mentors already available that have lined up and agreed to be a mentor in storytelling. If writing skits and plays or books are your thing, and a mentor, of course, in the universal language. I hadn't realized that April Helen had such an extensive training already put together, so we could take on that. There's too many ideas to even put forth here, but I'd love to see anyone who would like to join a group and not have to just work on their own. We'd love to help coordinate that. Are there any other comments that you'd like to make about your own ways of spreading the book of the teachings?
Or questions?
Do you belong to study groups? Who belongs to a study group now?
Well, I lead one.
I'd make a comment.
Go right ahead.
Learn the Bible.
Learn the Bible. Uh-huh.
Learn the Bible. That's their book. You're asking them to read your book. They'll be more interested in that if you know their book. And if you don't, they're going to figure it out pretty quickly. I gave that example of what I said to those ladies in Colombia. I couldn't have said that if I hadn't spent some time in the Bible.
Yeah, Don, do you find that to be an issue when you're in the churches that they expect you to know the Bible?
Yes, they do. And a lot of these groups are well versed in scripture. But I found that mainly if you can know the gospel accounts first and then move to other letters of Paul, that's helpful. I had a conversation in one of the churches that had to do with the teachings of Jesus. And someone made the statement, because I was pointing out the superior teachings of Jesus over the Old Testament writers. And they said, well, you got to know the Old Testament in order to understand Jesus. And I said, no, you don't. I said, Jesus' teachings are standalone. I said, if Jesus came and appeared without any knowledge of the Old Testament, his teachings are so superior that they hold their own weight. And I told them, I said, listen, does a Buddhist have to know the history of China and all the people that preceded Buddha in order to understand his teachings? No. So if we were to, you need to have some knowledge of the Bible. And but if you're starting out, I would say get familiar with the teachings of Jesus. If you know those well from the gospel account, then you have enough there to be able to have intermingling and conversations with people in the churches.
I completely agree with that, Don. There's no doubt about that. And yet, when Jesus was asked in the temple the last week, what is the greatest of the law and the prophets? He pulled something right out of the second chapter of Deuteronomy. And to be able to say to someone, well, yeah, but Jesus took stuff like Deuteronomy 2:2 and made it the cornerstone of his teachings. They're going to get a little closer to you. They're going to say, oh, all right, this guy's one of us. And I think that's a quick way to make them one of us.
Yeah, good idea. Good thoughts. Now, I know Peter has his hand up, Saniello. And what's Peter got?
What has Peter got to say? I really probably shouldn't say anything because I'm a real Roman Catholic, real live.
Oh.
And I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be one of us and we don't need to be one of you because we're all one already.
Body of Christ.
You can't save fish from water. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just going to leave it there. I apologize for saying dark things. You guys are very positive, even when you're saying things, like you have to teach us Catholics a lesson. We just all want to be together in Jesus. We're already unified, folks. Please just don't put each other apart anymore. That's all I wanted to say. Phil, thank you.
All right. Vincent?
Well, I like a lot of the last names here today, Calabresi and fellow, I'm a Consolo. So yeah, I was raised Catholic, Italian Catholic, of course. And I struggle also with how good do we have to be and how much in the Urantia spectrum do we be the farmer spreading seeds? And it bothers me a little bit. Diane's thing about the pearly gate, we're asked how much did we do? And what can we say? I like the idea, though, of diversity. I remember a saying that says we all sit at the table of Christ, but many of us just like different aspects of the meal. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And I'm very appreciative of the structure that my Catholic schooling gave me, Catholic schools, and kissed the bishop's ring at 13. And I don't know if we kept all those vows, Peter, but tried. But I don't know if I've rationalized my contribution or not. I place Urantia books. I have at least 2 all the time in my car I buy from Amazon. And and the people that I meet in discussion, I don't think I've ever yet quoted a Urantia script or anything. I don't preach. I don't stand on the corner saying, "Thus saith the Lord," holding up a Urantia book. But I give a Urantia book with a simple little thing. You might find this interesting. Read the table of contents. And if you read the table of contents, you're going to find something. Everybody is going to find something interesting. That's how diverse the Urantia book is into somebody's current position in life. And so, and then spirit cleaveth unto spirit, light cleaveth unto light. If the person that finds the Urantia book, if I happen to just place it, like last month I was at the VA on my yearly physical, and I just left one right there with the magazines and whatnot. Now somebody's going to pick up the Urantia book. I wonder if, was it mentioned here today about, yes, Diane, placing a library or whatnot. I just don't know why everybody doesn't place once a month a Urantia book somewhere. Make it like the Gideon's Bible. How else can we get the word out better than placing the book in front of somebody free? I think we can, everybody here can afford periodically buying a Urantia book. I try once a month to do that. And I've done that for quite a number of times. And I rationalize it. I plant the seed, but I don't tend the garden. Well, I don't know how that's going to fit in on the Pearly Gate meeting. But anyways, I thoroughly enjoyed. Listen, I was a peeping Tom at your meeting. I didn't know about the Los Angeles Urantia thing. I'm kind of live in solitude and worry about seclusion, leading to isolation. But this type of a thing, the Zoom classes, the cafe classes, the Urantia Institute, I like to attend periodically. And so, but anyways, great presentations today. April Helen, your presentation was just really great. It was really great, and so was all the comments today from Donald also, that diversity perspective and whatnot. Anyways, that's my thought. Thank you for allowing me to. Somebody sent me an email, so thanks, whoever it was.
Vincent, you said you're in Kern County. I'm in Palmdale. How far are you from me? What city are you in?
Oh, who said that?
Jeanette did.
Oh,
Yeah. What city are you in?
well, my zip code is Lancaster,
Oh my
but
goodness,
I'm
you're
in
right
the
down the street.
county. It's only because it's the closest zip code. I'm about a couple miles from the Kern County line, Avenue
Oh, yeah?
A and whatnot. Live in a senior complex, and so no, I don't know. Is there anything cooking Urantia in the Antelope Valley? I don't think
Well,
so.
I'm one city over from you.
Well, of course I know where Pondale is.
Yeah.
Of
yeah.
course. You
So
cannot.
we should get in touch.
Well, I would be more than happy to.
I'm gonna put my email address to you in your in the chat, okay?
Okay, and if I don't get it, mine is seniorlake@yahoo.
Senior Lake, Lake.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll get in
thanks.
touch.
Well, thanks for everybody.
All right, great, Vincent.
I know
Hey,
we're wrapping things up here.
We'll keep you posted, Vincent, of everything that's happening here, and you join us. And April Helen, you're saying what?
Oh, just I think it was Mr. Richard who said learn the Bible, and I would say yes if that's what you want to do. Whatever's interesting to you, go there and learn that. If it's in a community of nerdy scientists who want to talk about astronomy, I'm sure that you can, with the Urantia books knowledge, up level their understanding of what's going on in the physical universe. Or if it's about raising families or simply communicating and growing through challenges and learning how to embody the art of living on an up level higher consciousness scale. I'm not interested in going into the church and learning the Bible. And that's why I say this, because I find it with the help of our thought adjusters and Spirit of Truth and Holy Spirit, as we tap into and cultivate those bonds, we're guided uniquely into any situation that can give us the opportunity to paraphrase in some way whatever we know about the teachings. That's what I'll end with. I've really appreciated being here with all of you. Aloha.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was very, very good.
Let's see, somebody else's hand up, but only a phone number there. 163-164.
Hi, this is Charles. Can I say something?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for the great presentations and testimonies. And about the library thing, I noticed the other day that there is one of these in a public park in downtown LA. It's called Gloria Molina Grand Avenue Park. And someone could put a book there. Would anyone like to do that?
Well,
Are you in Los Angeles?
I just left.
Where are you?
I'm on a train.
Did you put your email in our chat? That
I
would be-
can't chat. I can't chat from the phone.
I see. Well,
But-
we'll keep emailing you you got our email through a flyer?
Yeah, the fellowship email.
Yeah, what's your name?
Charles Lehner.
Okay.
Okay.
I see we have some hands up. Bill, who's next?
Well, I see Tom and Marie Vaselli. That hand is up next, and then Robert Ish.
Marie, hi there. Is Tom with you? Oh, you're muted.
Where? Right here. I'm unmuted now. Okay. Hi, guys. We've been listening in the background. Just wanted you to know, Vincent and someone else, we live in Tehachapi, California, which, as you know, is really close to Rosamond. And Lee is a member of our study group. We lead 2 study groups, one on Sunday, which Tom leads. We were reading the book all the way through and we finished just recently, but we now read some topical things, and I lead the study of Jesus. And we actually do a remembrance celebration with every study. So Vincent, I did take your email down, seniorlake@yahoo. Is that all of it? Yeah, and you're Vincent, what's your last name?
Yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com, right, okay. And your last name is?
Solo.
Consolo, C-O-N?
SOLO.
SOLO. All right, so it's very nice to meet you. We are fellow Kern County residents, and we're pretty active with our participation in the Urantia book. Tom and I do the stepping stones. I've taken a break. I've had some family tragedies, so I'm taking a break. But anyway, it's great to meet you. And Tom will now tell you about his Catholic Italian retreat that he does.
This goes along with the theme of what you guys have been talking about sharing the teachings. The Spirit led me into being a leader of an Italian men's retreat at Sierra Madre, Madre Dolorosa, California. It's in Sierra Madre, right next to Pasadena. And I've been involved in leading the retreat for about 20 years. The retreat's going to be in its 76th annual retreat this year.
Wow.
And I just wanted to let you guys know, especially it's an Italian men's retreat, but everybody's welcome. But those of you who are Italian Catholic, I was raised Catholic myself, and if you're comfortable in the Catholic traditions with their rituals, you don't even have to attend them though. You can go to a retreat and not attend them. But it is a Catholic setting. But I do get to, I make presentations every day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I get to share the teachings of the Urantia book within the Catholic community as I know they would accept them. Because I was raised Catholic, I know what it's all about. So I just want to let you guys know, if you're interested, I put in the chat my email address. And if you emailed me, I'd make sure you get on our mailing list and you get an invitation to the retreat every year. It's always the weekend after Mother's Day. That's the tradition for us. So if you guys, anybody interested in it, is a men's retreat. Unfortunately, it's not for women. It's just an all men's retreat. But it's very different than most retreats. It's not silent. We have wine at lunch and wine at dinner. It's a real Italian kind of atmosphere, but very focused on trying to be spiritually uplifting as much as possible.
Well, Tom, that's amazing because I'm Italian and I'm also a former practicing Catholic. Of course, I came up in the Catholic Church, and so very interesting. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree in the Protestant congregations that I've been part of. Maybe the Catholics would be more. I know more about the Catholics than I know about the Protestants, perhaps.
Well, I am comfortable in the Catholic setting now, but when I first got the Urantia book and first got into reading it, I couldn't go into the church anymore. I was so upset with what they were teaching about Jesus's teachings that I couldn't even go into church. I would go to the retreats every year, but I would sit outside the church. And now that I'm the leader of the thing, I go to the masses, I go to all their rituals, and I'm okay with it now. I can accept it and realize these are sincere people who are really trying to follow Jesus. They're really trying to be spirit-led folks, and they're doing it within the framework of the Catholic religion, which isn't interesting. But a lot of men who go to it are not Catholic, and they let me know that, that they're not Catholic. So it's really a spirit-centered and a real familiar experience. It's a family kind of environment because a lot of us have been going for over 40 years. And so we've gotten to know each other really well, and we support each other's spiritual growth in it. So any man who would be interested in it, please go ahead and email me, and I'd be happy to include you on the mailing list.
Robert? Yes, you got some a comment? Question?
Just a quick echo, appreciating what Peter was saying, that, it's the sharing of the brotherhood and the sisterhood that's important, being a child of God and recognizing that the devil is in the details. We don't all have to have the same theology. And the master said that. And Jeanette just talking about the importance of, kind of getting to know your pastors. My pastors know I'm a reader of the Urantia book, and in every service, there's going to be a quote, usually from the Old Testament and the New Testament in many services. If you can expand on that from something in the Urantia book, not trying to change their theology, not trying to convert them, but once you've heard the truth of those stories, you can't unhear them. And I've seen a lot of truth that I've shared from the Urantia book make it into the sermons later on in the greater congregation. And that's just truth expanding. So it's about bringing us together, not looking at the differences, sharing those truths, and trusting that the fruits will be nourished by God.
Oh, thank you for that. Yes, yes. It is addicting once you get into it.
Okay. Well, we are getting to the end of this. Now it's going on 2.5 hours. I want to thank our Creator's Son, Jesus, Michael, for getting us together and for promising to be with us whenever we remembered that we are spiritual sons of his Father and our Father, directly connected. And we therefore are spiritual family. And we ought to be able to treat each other with that kind of respect. That's the bottom line, isn't it? So go ahead, Diane.
This has been one of the best events we've had in participation and contributions. I want to thank everyone for your contributions. And I want you to know that we'll be contacting you if you put your email in our chat to let you know about our next event, But in addition, the projects that are opening up for what we would call willing workers. One of our society members in his wild youth was living in Oregon in like a commune of Urantia book readers. And they formed a group they called the Willing Workers. And they advertised themselves as the Willing Workers, and they made themselves available to people in the community up there and in the towns to come and do whatever service they needed. And of course, they were strong young men and could climb on roofs and do stuff like that. But we could also form willing workers in other specialties within the work that April Helen described. And if anyone would like to join a group and work with other people in some specialty skill, certainly anybody with video making skills or skit writing skills, many different ways of getting the book out, please contact me. It's in the flyer that you got, my phone number. And we would like to put people together who would like to work together in pursuing whatever aspect of spreading the teachings that you would like. And there's a lot of them. And is there any other body who hasn't put their email or contact information in the chat, we'd sure appreciate that. And it's just been a love fest here and a bouquet of personalities that I can hardly believe that there's so many different ways of seeing and acting out our beliefs. We'd love to have you back next time. As Phil was saying, our next event will probably be around May, June, but it'll be packed just like this one is. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you again for the invitation, and I enjoyed the communing with everyone here. Beautiful occasion.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, everybody.
Don, can I just ask you one question? What was the name of your Zoom group, the men's group? It had an interesting name, but I couldn't quite catch what it was.
Oh, Iron Sharpens Iron.
Iron sharpens iron. Very interesting. Thank you.
No, I wanted to remark, I was raised Catholic, and I remember when, at least in the ancient days when I was there, that we could not go into a non-Catholic church. It was forbidden. You were never supposed to go into a non-Catholic place of worship. And so I never did. I never got to know people in other churches. And I'm not sure how they practice that now in the Catholic upbringing, but I'm grateful for the structure also that the Catholic Church afforded. And it set me up. And as I noticed, there are many, many Urantia book readers who came from the Catholic Church. So it was like a training ground. It was an easy transition to step over into the Urantia movement because I was already having a relationship with God. I was already prepared to be a learner of anything God-like. So I think it was a good training. Luckily, somehow I recognized that it was there are other ways to be. And the book came along and somehow that touch that you recognized it. How does it happen that we here happen to recognize the book when so many people I try and talk to, it goes right over their head. So we are blessed, and perhaps the Catholic Church helped with that.
All right. Well, I think we are at the end of our 2 hour and 30-minute session, and I think we ought to we thank everybody who participated and who showed up. And I want to wave goodbye to everyone and end this meeting.
And come back next time.
All right.